So my pleasure is to present the next speaker, who will be Rachel Tiller, a chief scientist from Sintef Ocean, who will talk about automatic catch registration tool. So Rachel, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I don't believe I have sound here. There we go. All right. Thank you guys for coming. Now, one of the, well, not one, but some of the big reasons for all the presentations we've seen so far today is, of course, the fact that we're in the midst of a number of different crises, a number of different situations in which we have to come up with new technological solutions and innovations that can help us reduce some of the burdens on the ecosystem. So one of the things that I want to talk to you about today is going to be how the fishing sector, rather than only being seen as a contributor to all the bad that's happening in the water, can also be a contributor towards some very good things, something that we need to preserve biodiversity. So I want to focus us in on the global biodiversity framework. This is a very large-scale global agreement that was agreed upon about 2 years ago. Now, this agreement was agreed upon by 196 countries. It was by consensus. Everyone was very excited. At this time, we're going to come up with a solution to halt biodiversity loss. So we know there's lots of biodiversity loss in the ocean as well. We do know that we also don't know how much biodiversity loss we have in the ocean because there is so little data. So our previous presentation was very clear about this as well. We do need more information about what's in the ocean, what are we even able to harvest, what should we harvest, what should we let stay there. So what they decided upon in this agreement was that we had a very short time. By 2030, we had to have solved a number of really big issues in the ocean. So what they wanted to do was basically focus in on a set of goals and targets that would all be measurable, that would all be implementable, and that could all solve the crisis. While we could still have sustainability, we could still have value growth, we could still have sustainable development. So what they came up with, I'm going to go take you quickly through them in as easy of a way as possible. You can think of this as having 4 goals. One of them is to stop the loss to begin with, like stop us from taking too much. It's also to continue using the sea, but sustainably, so we should still be able to go harvest fish. We'd also need to share the benefits among all of us. And we need to make sure that we have the money available so that everyone is able to participate in this, not just Norway, but all countries. There's 23 targets. Now, they tried to amp this up a bit this time, making it even more ambitious than the last time they had it. And spoiler alert, last time they managed to reach none of the targets. But this time, it's serious. So they set up 23 targets. I'm not going to go into all the targets with you, but I'm going to point out a couple of them for you. But first, you need to think of them as being in 3 different parts. You both have to reduce, you have to use, and you also need to come up with reliable implementation measures. So concretely, how are you going to be doing this? Now, for the fishing sectors, there are some that are especially important, both in terms of how it's going to affect them, but also in terms of how the fishing sector can contribute towards reaching these goals. Now, the fishing sector in general, almost half of these targets are directly applicable to the fishing sector, and all of them are in some way applicable. The one that's going to be felt the most will likely be around, if you even heard about this biodiversity treaty, you will have heard about 30 by 30. It's a global agreement, basically, that we will preserve 30% of all areas at sea and restore 30% by 2030. So that's in about 6 years. So today, Norway, for example, is preserving about 2%. And there's already quite a bit of rift of all the areas that are out there. But 30% is the goal. So that's going to have an effect on the fishing sector, because there will be new areas that are going to be under protection and not open for fishing. The other one is Target 10. And Target 10 is really interesting because it requires a very substantial increase in applied biodiversity-friendly practices. So this is where the fishing sector can contribute very specifically to the biodiversity goals. It even specifically says you need innovation, you need technology, and you need to do this so that you can continue to have growth in different industries, especially that which comes into the fishing sector and agriculture. But focusing in on fisheries, I want to take you through what this topic is about, which is automatic catch registration. So at Sintef, we are coordinating an EU project called Every Fish. So that's a project that is similar in a sense to what we just heard in the previous presentation, but we're on deck at this time. And we're on deck and we're recognizing that there's a lot of different goods that come out of the ocean that we still want to have. And that there's a lot of technological developments that are ongoing right now. We see a huge shift, and we've seen that in all the presentations. Artificial intelligence, camera vision, and we're using those in these projects to not be underwater, but to count every fish that comes out of the water, so that we can get an overview of the species that we're catching, the size, the weight, the length, so we can know exactly what we're taking out. So yes, we absolutely want to stop ourselves from taking out the parts that we don't want. But once they're on board, we want to know what we're taking out of the ocean, because only that way will we be able to know what's left, what we can sustainably harvest, how we can sustainably harvest it. Because at some point, and this was also mentioned earlier, consumers are going to ask, where did this come from? Where did you catch it? Was it red listed? Did you do it sustainably? These are the kind of questions that consumers and people around us in general are going to be asking us, so that we can have a good conscience about what we're doing and that we can contribute. So that is what we've been wanting to do in this project, and what they're doing across Europe right now in many different projects, all working towards these same goals. We're also working together with the Catch ID program at the Fisheries Directorate. They're also part of this project, because we need to work together with the governance as well, so that we know that once we come up with these great solutions, there's going to be someone ready to implement them for us. But you can't do this alone, though, can you? And this has been brought up many times. You have to have the industry on board. If you don't have the industry on board in these kinds of projects, you will absolutely get nowhere. So what we're also doing in this project is taking this a step further and not going only on technology, but we're closely integrating this with the social sciences, and we're having run workshops in 6 different countries with fishers, with scientists, and with the governance actors. And some of the things that we've come up with during this, so the countries are Norway, we are in Denmark, Netherlands, Belgium, Spain, and Turkey. So we have a bit of a cross-section across Europe. We have some large-scale fisheries, we have some very small mixed fisheries. And some of the preliminary results are a little bit about very much in line with political trust. So in Norway, you do have, spoiler alert, a lot of discontent around putting all these sensors on board. Because when it comes down to it, you need to have a laser, a camera, a video, some kind of system to record all this fish. Now, a lot of people don't enjoy having camera systems on them, including myself. So what we need to do is work with the fishers to come up with what kind of systems, what kind of camera setup can we have that has the least effect on you. We also have to look into what Ina was talking about earlier, the size. Batteries take up space, but damn, some of these very big camera systems also take up a lot of space. How do we work with the governance actors in terms of managing this so that this is also possible? In Denmark, they were much more positive towards this, but they wanted to see some kind of return scheme. So we heard earlier about the whip and the carrots. They wanted a carrot. They wanted a lot of carrots. They wanted to be able to have more freedom in gear selection if they participated in this. If the goal is to catch every fish, or not catch, to actually measure every single fish and know what we take out, then why not have a gear selection freedom? When it came down to Turkey, they were fine as long as someone else paid for it, and they said that in general they did not enjoy the big brother effect, but they felt that there was no one counting anything at all at this point, and they did want to catch those that were taking too much. In Netherlands and Belgium, we saw a different problem. There was a lot of distrust between the fishers and managers. They did not want them to have this kind of data, and they were worried about the effect of giving this information to scientists even would have on them. So there is a lot of distrust between the different actors, and that's why these projects are going to be so important, because you do need to have a cross-section included, and you absolutely need to have the fishers with, because otherwise there are so many ways you do not comply with this. All you have to do is not clean the lens. If you don't have the fishers on your side and wanting to have this on board, then these are not going to be implemented. And if you don't have the managers with you that see the benefits of using this, then you will also not get it implemented. So you can have all the technology in the world, and we can think it's the greatest thing ever, but it needs to be implemented at some point. The main thing is that once this is implemented, it will contribute greatly towards those goals and those targets in the Global Biodiversity Framework that we now, from this fall, Norway will submit what exactly it is that we will report upon. So we're going to Colombia to follow these negotiations and find out how is it that each country is expected to report on it, and how can the fishing sector contribute towards Norway at least reaching their goals, and all these European countries reaching the goals that they have set for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Are there any questions for Rachel on this topic? Yes, please. There's a microphone coming.
So testing, all right. So the thing that you've developed in the Everyfish project, is it meant to be interoperable, complementary, or an addendum to ERS?
It is. It's meant to replace the system for reporting that they have today. This was one of the questions that the Norwegian took very seriously when they had it in the workshops there. And that was something that the Fisheries Directorate was very specific about, that this would be a new system. It's a system where they don't have to manually report. It will be a weighing system that will be able to be accurate enough. So these were also some of the worries that the fishers had.
Can I have one follow-up?
Yes.
The time frame for that?
Very uncertain. I would say the Fisheries Directorate would want it sooner rather than later, but I did mention 2030, right? By which time we need to have solved all of this. So, no, the sooner the better. But and there's a Norwegian company called Melbus Systems in northern Norway. They have something called the catch scanner that's already been sold to many fishing vessels. What we also still need to work with is Justervesenet, so the meteorology company? Agency. Those that meter, those that check that basically the weights are going to be correct. So that's part of a different project called Optifish, where we take this further to get it closer to implementation. But these are also, you're going to know, this is not one technology. So for every fish alone, we're testing 10 different technologies, from recreational fisheries all the way up to tuna fisheries, using both conveyor belt systems, lasers, cameras with smartphones. So there's a lot of different technologies that we're using to make sure that we have the entire breadth.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.